Welcome once again to How to Relate to Anyone. Here is Dr. Orv Owens.
Hi there. Welcome again to our program on How to Relate to Anyone. We're starting a series within the series of lessons on decision making. Probably the most important thing you will ever determine in your life is how to make right decisions. Wrong decisions cost you money. Wrong decisions cost you clients. Wrong decisions cost you employees. Wrong decisions cause a lack of productivity. It's vitally important that we make right decisions and know how to make right decisions. I had a guy the other day say, I just lost my temper. No, you didn't lose your temper. You chose to be temper controlled. It's a decision you made. Because every thought is a decision, and every decision will determine how effective you will be in working with or relating to or accomplishing or being creative. All those things are dependent upon you having right attitude. You found that when you have a bad attitude, when you're in the mully grubs, when you're down, you have trouble being creative. And if you're not creative, you will not be productive. Creativity creates productivity. And so it's vitally important that we stay above the line, stay positive. And so controlling our decision making controls our life. Every time you've gotten yourself into a fix, it's because you made some wrong decisions. Either had your feelings hurt and so you got mad at that person, or you misunderstood somebody and you took shots at them, said things that you were sorry for afterwards. All of that is decision making. And the good news is you have total 100% control of every decision you make. I heard a person the other day say, that person just drives me crazy. That's not an accurate statement. What that person should have said is, I choose to be driven crazy by that person's behavior or actions or whatever. Because nobody can make you think something you don't want to think. And you can't make anybody else think something they don't want to think. So as a salesperson, it's vitally important that you open people's minds so they can hear what you're saying, as opposed to being defensive and throwing out most of what you're saying. As a manager, when you break down communication with your employees, it's because you did not open their minds and relate to them based upon an open-minded situation. So we want to look at, what does it take to open people's minds? Also, what does it take to understand where people are in their own emotional environment, their own decision making, their own lifestyle, where they are as an individual. So we're going to look at time, and this is a diagram that describes time. It's the horizontal line is from here to there, and that can be a measurement of from birth till death. It could be a measurement of a 1-hour presentation. On this diagram, we can measure a 5-minute phone call. And everything above this line is positive, or what we call love motivated. Everything below the line is negative or fear motivated. Fear causes resistance. Fear causes psychological blocks and push away that which you're offering. The open mind is above the line, and it's, what else can I learn from you? What else can I hear? How does this apply to me? And that openness is what you're looking for in this, as a salesperson, as a manager, as a friend, as a spouse, as a parent. In any relationship in your life, you want people to be open to you, what you're saying, rather than setting up defense mechanisms, psychological blocks. And so everything on this chart or this diagram above the line is going to be positive, and it starts at 0 on the line and moves up a little at a time, and we'll go through the steps above the line and below the line in a later lesson. But as we go above the line, it becomes positive and more positive, and until it's fantastic. Below the line is, I'm not sure about that. I start questioning below the line. And because I question below the line, I'm setting up psychological blocks to protect myself, because I'm not sure what I'm hearing is something that I want, need, or desire. Everybody makes decisions based upon their wants, their needs, and their desires. And as a salesperson, as a manager, your ability to have pure or effective communication with your employees or with a client is your ability to keep them above this line, keep their mind open so they can see what you're presenting is something they want, something they need, and something they desire. Now, sometimes the needs are so great that the wants aren't satisfied. I want a raise in pay. That's what I want. I need to do this, this, and this to prove myself so that you, my boss, are going to give me a raise in pay. So we have to deal with the need level in order to have a positive effect on the want level. And all this is measured on this diagram. So the line that is horizontal starts with birth, goes to death, starts with a phone call to the end of the phone call, or any measurement of any time of a thought process from beginning to end. We can measure that on this diagram. The higher we go above the line, the more positive. The lower below the line is negative. So this diagram will be used throughout our rest of our course, and you'll be able to understand what I'm saying when we speak of above the line, below the line. We want to introduce the fact that the above the line is love motivated or positive. I say love motivated because it's the opposite of fear motivated, which is below the line, and fear motivation is a negative decision. We're measuring actually decisions above the line and below the line. We're not measuring attitudes, we're measuring decisions, because decisions determine the destiny, determines where we're going with this and what kind of effect or what kind of results we're going to have. And so we want to be above the line to be most productive, because when we're dealing with people, I don't care if it's client, employee, friend, or whatever, when we're dealing with people, communicating with people, we want them to be able to accept and understand and buy into that which we're presenting. That's all above the line. Below the line, you're going to discover is it's easy to fall into. If I say something that turns you off a little bit, you're now below the line. And I have to get you back up above the line, or you're not going to hear the rest of what I say. And that's true as a manager, or as a salesperson, or with any communication. And so, above the line is expressed in giving. You'll see this on the chart. Giving means I'm giving with no strings attached. We as human beings tend to barter or trade or give with strings attached. I'll do this for you if you do this for me. Or after all you've done for me, I'll do this for you. And it's a trading. The problem with trading is you're not always in a position to trade. And the other problem with trading is there's always strings attached. I'll do this for you if, and I'm not sure what the if is, but it could be anything that's negative below the line, and that's going to cause a breakdown in communication, a breakdown in belief level, a breakdown in acceptance of what you're saying. And of course, as a salesperson, if they don't accept what you're saying, you don't have a client, much less a sale. As a manager, if they're not accepting what you're saying, they're going to make mistakes. They're not going to meet up to what your expectations are in with the instructions you have just given them. And I would tell you the breakdown in communication in sales and in management is your fault. You need to take full responsibility for that. So everything above the line is giving, everything below the line is judging. Judging means I'm looking for the fault. I'm looking for something wrong. I'm looking for the little something that's not quite right. And as we go down below that line, we set up psychological blocks to protect every decision we make. So if we make a decision below the line, then there's a psychological block there, and the psychological block blocks out any further information that's going to deal with that decision I've already made. In our next lesson, we're going to show just some decision making above the line and below the line, how those psychological blocks work. And it's interesting that we can set up a psychological block, and it is so strong that we will not accept something that we want. It's amazing how some people get turned off, and then because they're turned off on whatever you have said, they can't hear the rest of what you say. Even though everything you're saying from that point on is well within their value system and the things they want and need. You know, I invited you to come out and show me your product or your service because I'm interested in purchase of that product or service, and then you say something that turns me off, and now the psychological blocks will not allow me to hear the rest of your presentation. Because from that point on, I'm leaning back a bit saying, I see. And when I'm doing this, you've lost me as a salesperson, or as a manager, or as a spouse. As soon as my wife goes, I'm not sure about, I've lost her. And I got to go back around, open her mind back up, and get her up above the line, or she's not going to hear what I'm saying. Most of our population spend most of their time below this line. They live there. They question everything. So you show them something, hand them a picture, and they'll look at the picture and say, well, it's not really clear, or that doesn't look very good, or whatever. We tend to look at the downside of everything that we're offered in our society. And it's something we've learned from birth till now. And it's habitual. We do without even thinking about it. We question statements. We question opportunities. We question products and services. We question intentions. We question people's attitudes. We question. We're questioning people, if there is such a word. So, if we understand that, when people go below this line, they are judging. Their mind is not open. They're justifying a no decision. I don't agree. I don't like it. And you've lost them. And we're going to show you how to open the mind back up, because if this happens, and it will, because you don't know that prospect until you meet them. You don't know what your employee is thinking all the time. But if they're below the line, you better get them above the line, or they'll not be productive. Worked with a company that is a plywood company. They make plywood. Logs come in and plywood goes out. And they had such a difficult time with turnover in personnel because they were chasing people out the door. The management team, the supervisors, and the foreman, and those levels of management were saying things that were turning people off so much that they quit. They had an 80% turnover in personnel because people would end up below this line and they hated to come to work. And finally, the last straw, a shot taken at me by that boss, I'm not even going back to work. I can get a job at McDonald's hamburgers and get along better than this. 80% turnover in personnel. You can't be productive. You can't be profitable with an 80% turnover in personnel. I was called in because they were ready to shut the plant down. That meant that most of the people were below this line making negative decisions, which created high level of turnover in personnel. And because of the high level of turnover in personnel, profits went out the window. You cannot have that kind of low productivity. I mean, when you hire somebody, it takes 6 months in most cases for a person to really become highly productive. So what we want to do then is we want to be able to, as a salesperson, make sure we keep people above the line. We want to make sure that as a manager, we keep our whole staff above the line. Those supervisors and managers went through our management course, which we teach some of these same concepts. And in the next year, that plant became the most productive plant in the corporate structure. They have 20 plants up and down the East Coast. And this one was about ready to be closed. A year later, they were number one in productivity and profitability. What changed? Managers who learned how to relate to employees and keep them above the line. I have salespeople who have doubled and tripled their closing ratio understanding this diagram. And so we want you to really get a good grasp of it. And we want to be able to make sure that in all of your actions and all of your reactions with your people, whether it's clients, employees, spouse, children, friends, you keep everybody above the line. We love to be around positive people. We do not enjoy being around people who are down all the time. I don't want to hear all your problems. I want to hear all your victories. Some people just pull you down. You spend 15 minutes with them and it ruins your whole day. It takes you 3 hours just to get over them. You don't want to be the person that people have to get over because you're pulling them down below the line into the negatives and causing them to be so defensive that they can't relate to you or anybody else. Have you ever had somebody you met with and when you left, you just had to kind of go, whew, that person just wears me out. The reason they're wearing you out is because everything they're saying is below the line. And below the line will just totally wipe out your creativity, your productivity, your energy supply, your ability to relate to people, your ability to communicate in an effective way with no matter who you meet. So this line, just above the line is good. High above the line is fantastic. Below the line is bad. And way down here is terrible. You have to determine, are you keeping yourself above the line? And by keeping yourself above the line, are you leading people into above the line thinking? Now, an interesting thing happens when you stay above the line. Your projection of energy, your projection of personality is so positive, it lifts other people. And they feel better after they spent half an hour with you, or an hour with you, or a day at work with you, as opposed to, got to go to work, Blue Mondays, and thank God it's Friday, and a lot of bad days in between. You don't want those bad days. As a salesperson, you want people to refer you to other people. I'm not going to refer you to somebody if I feel negative about you. So, want you to know, you have total control, and we're going to show you in the next 6 lessons how to stay above the line, how to be productive, how to develop highly successful relationships. And that means success. It means money in your pocket, but it also means people who believe in you.